I have made, frankly, a lot of videos on this channel. I don't particularly like looking at the number because, oh my god, it's too many. But over time, my email gets added into mailing lists and press release lists and a bunch of other stuff like this, and some of them are useful. Thank you, Collabora. Thank you, System76. Very much appreciated. But other times, it's things I just don't really care about. Now, what doesn't often happen is a company joins my Discord server and sends the press release there. This is don't support the Coreboot project. Now, you may have seen this already mentioned on places like Phoronix, but when I mentioned I was gonna make this video, I've had a number of people reach out to me. I don't know if I want to split some of that into a whole nother video, because there is a lot of really dumb things that are kind of out of the scope of this one. But I have also spoken to someone involved in Coreboot. Specifically, one of the companies mentioned in this post. So, what is the post? Well, after negative interactions with 3 people in the Coreboot space, specifically the 9 Elements consulting firm, another one by the name of 3M Deb, and an individual developer by the name of MrChromebox. This is gonna sound really stupid, and I know it is. Germany, Austria, Liechtenstein, Poland, and Texas have been banned from purchasing MALIBAL laptops. Also, AMD is banned from being in a MALIBAL laptop. They will not sell AMD laptops. Now, also, after this was all called out by Mr. Jeremy Soller of System76, skill issue dumbasses, they went and banned the state of Colorado as well. So hopefully by the end of this video, we can also get Australia banned. You're also probably asking, who is MALIBAL? Because before I started planning this video, I had never heard of them. Well, MALIBAL is a laptop, I'm not going to say manufacturer because that would definitely not be accurate. I'm going to say laptop reseller, because what they do, like a lot of small laptop companies, is they take existing laptops, rebadge them, and then sell them. Specifically in this case, it is Tongfeng laptops. Now, this isn't inherently a bad thing. System76 does the same thing with Clevo laptops. They also managed to work out Coreboot though. Also, System76 isn't just a random mention. They are kind of relevant to the story outside of just that Jeremy Soller post. One random thing is this company has been around for a very long time, actually 1 year longer than System76. Now, I say company very loosely because people have done some digging into the company, and there's one guy who runs the company. So I'm not going to say anything more than that because I don't exactly want to dox the person because that's stupid, but yeah, there is one person running the company. Have you ever wondered why so few companies offer laptops with Coreboot? We found ourselves asking the same question, which led us on a 15-month journey to port our laptops to this open source firmware. The experience, however, was nothing like we anticipated. Now, the real answer most companies don't offer Coreboot is because to a normal, regular person, it is literally not a value add. There is nothing a regular non-techie person is going to get out of Coreboot. The only people that care about it are people that, you know, run Linux, that care about open source, that care about FOSS, and most companies don't even offer their laptops with Linux in the first place, so they're definitely not going to offer Coreboot. But there are companies that do. For example, Star Labs, Purism, System76, which the MALIBAL guy doesn't really like, Tuxedo Computers, and a couple of others. Instead of support and collaboration, we faced inflated prices, poor communication, and what we perceived as incompetence from Coreboot leaders and consultants. Our efforts ultimately fell apart, not due to technical challenges, ooh, we're definitely going to see some of those, but because of what we see as unethical practices within the Coreboot community. Now, if this blog post was just calling out Coreboot developers, saying how evil they are, all of that stuff, I think they could have come ahead and used this as like a marketing piece to like get people to buy their laptops. But because they took the insane route of banning entire countries, they are clearly the bad guy in the situation. So, our first victim, poor soul, we'll say fighter. Our first fighter, 9 Elements. They quoted $50,000 to $100,000 per porting to a board, which MALIBAL thought was an outrageous price, so they decided to try porting to the laptops themselves. Then they hit a sticking point and reluctantly contacted them for debugging their code. Now, this is the key point they definitely hit home on throughout the entire blog post. I'll save the juicy part for just a moment though. From the start, our interactions with Christian Walter were awful. We repeatedly stressed how important and time-sensitive this project was, but he seemed completely indifferent. In fact, he made a snide remark about us coming back after trying to do it ourselves. Probably because they quoted you a price, and you were like, no, that's too expensive. And then you came crawling back, and they're like, oh, so it wasn't that expensive, was it? It actually is kind of difficult to do this, wasn't it? A lot of Christian's emails looked like they were written by a 12-year-old on their phone. Now, knowing a lot of developers and knowing myself, I'm almost certain they actually were written on his phone. I respond to emails on the toilet, and I know a lot of other people do as well, even like important business emails, so very possible. He didn't capitalize the first letter of a lot of sentences. Oh no. Had obvious typos and improper punctuation. Oh my god. He also had the habit of talking down to us, repeatedly trying to put us in our place and set us straight. We were just trying to get help debugging our code. I really doubt these are actual quotes. Otherwise, he probably would have included the context around it. I guess this is a level of service you get for $300 an hour in Germany. Yes, because he probably has a lot of other things that are also really important, and you're not the only client. When quoting the project, Christian tried to undermine our existing work, saying the Coreboot code is very incomplete. There is basically nothing except the device tree and the GPIO config. In reality, we actually had everything we needed to build the Coreboot ROM. He quoted 20 days, 160 hours total, which assumed we had no code at all. Here is a direct quote from Christian. And yes, the 20 days would only be Coreboot plus EDKII and would be only an assumption. I do the same thing as well, want to make you aware that it'll be much more work than just debugging. So, turns out, again, I know someone who works at 9 Elements, and, what they were handed was a clone of System76's tree with some modifications to the GPIO. That is all. It wasn't just something that needed debugging. It wasn't something even close to done. It needed a lot of work. They hadn't even done the porting work. When they say it was 80% done, it was 80% done because it was a clone of System76's repo. Now, being such a small company, MALIBAL wanted to keep the costs down, and that's why they tried to do it themselves initially. I say they, but it's one guy, but whatever. MALIBAL as the organization. And Christian had a suggestion for this. I think I suggested an alternative before, trying to form an agreement that we get a share of every sale and we will support the device at a low cost price. I think you didn't respond by the time being on my mail there. Jesus Christ, this grammar is worse than mine. Okay, you know what? I think MALIBAL might have a point. That is really bad grammar, which for some reason MALIBAL didn't accept as a reasonable term. Yes, giving 9elements a commission on every laptop we sold certainly sounds like a great way to keep the costs down. This is how shameless they are in trying to take you for every penny you're worth. You'll see what I mean when you find out the actual scope of the work required for this job below. After reviewing our schematics and motherboard, Christian said there are not debugging capabilities on the board. We had to actually inform him that there is in fact a UART port on the motherboard for debugging purposes. This is just one example of how Christian didn't seem to know what he was doing, or how he had to point out something you wouldn't assume a professional firmware developer would need help with. I am very curious to know what state things were provided in and what they were actually provided, because considering some images that are shown later, I can see why you wouldn't have been able to find the port. Another aspect we were dissatisfied with was the developer we were assigned. Considering how much we were paying, we assumed we'd get one of their top Coreboot contributors. Instead, we got an inexperienced developer named Max. According to his LinkedIn, was only 2 years out of college. Now, there is a lot of people in the FOSS world who may have only recently finished college, but have been developers for like 10 plus years. Just because someone has only recently graduated college, it doesn't mean they're an inexperienced developer. Christian even admitted that Max had only worked on a couple other Coreboot related jobs, so much for paying a premium to work with a Coreboot specialist. Again, working other Coreboot related jobs. He's an experienced Coreboot developer, but wasn't employed to work on Coreboot. Eventually, Christian claimed that Max was working on our project full-time. However, upon chatting with Max on Slack, he admitted he was only in the office a few hours a day. Now again, this is another thing that I talked about with the 9elements person. So Max works full-time hours. He partially works from home. They have things set up to allow developers to work from home. He comes into the office when he actually needs to physically be at the hardware or just wants to talk to people in person. This is a completely normal thing for a development firm to do. Several more days passed without any update. When we finally asked Max for one, he said he was having issues reading and writing to the chip. This is going to be a recurring theme throughout the entire video. At this point, we were extremely frustrated. It had been 2 months since we first contacted them. Christian claimed Max was working full-time, but that clearly wasn't the case. No, you clearly don't know what working from home is. Max was relatively inexperienced. No, you don't understand that people can be developers before going to college, and didn't seem to know what he was doing. Given all this, we asked Christian if we could get a second developer to work with Max until they resolved the issue. Well, much like everything else, Christian took offense to us asking for a second developer, which turned out to be the beginning of the end. Did you ask, though? Did you ask? Or did you demand? Because those are two very different things. This led to a private chat with Christian where we questioned him about Max, stating he was only in the office a few hours a day. We said we thought full-time meant 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, and Christian confirmed that was what he meant by full-time. Did he also say that Max works from home a lot of the time? Because, as I said, that's what he does. I've had this confirmed to me by other 9elements employees. I feel like some important context is being left out here to make 9elements look worse than they actually are. Well, no, I don't feel like it. I know for a fact that that's what's happening. As we were having this chat, Max made a breakthrough. Thanks to the advice we gave him about what to check to resolve the reading and writing issue, he finally built the Coreboot ROM with our code, with System 76's code with very minor modifications to it, flashed it, and tried to boot the laptop, which displayed an FSP message. Max said he was surprised it made it that far. Why? We told them our code just needed debugging, but they didn't want to believe it, because just because you are seeing an FSP message doesn't mean it's done. Just because it does something doesn't mean there isn't still a lot of work to do to it. Christian continued talking to us like dirt in the private chat, so we asked him if he was the owner of 9 Elements, because an employee would never talk to a customer like this, and he confirmed he was. Then we said, we can tell because owners usually aren't the best at customer service, to which he replied, I understand. So you know that quote, don't throw stones in glass houses? This is the textbook definition of that. Let me provide you with a quote. What a crackhead. Did you really think you were getting away with that? KDE is the trash bin of the Linux world. There is no wonder that's what you like. That was not sent to me. That was sent to another Linux YouTuber. Remember that part about, owners not being great at customer service? Here's an example from Reddit. Good one, zombie. You don't even exist. LMFAO, back into the abyss you go. Remember, there's one person at MALIBAL. All of these are the same person. And within a couple of minutes, without any warning, Christian removed us from the Slack channel we were invited to and essentially told us to get lost. We even had to remind him that he still had our laptop and we wanted it back. Fair enough, he probably just forgot he had the laptop and just didn't want to deal with you. Due to this experience with 9 Elements, we banned the entire country of Germany for life. Not just Germany, but also Austria and Liechtenstein. This is just the beginning. So our next party is 3M Deb, a Coreboot consultant we tried working with. Throughout interactions with them, we encountered delays, inflexibility, and a stark contrast between their open source rhetoric and their actual business practices. 3M Deb tries to market itself as a champion of free and open source software by highlighting its values on their site. But what open source really seems to be about for them is extracting all of the value from other people's code and then repackaging it under their own brand and charging a small fortune for it. So for the quote, they wanted $3,300 for a Desharo branded Coreboot plus EDK2 port evaluation and $6,600 for an unbranded Coreboot plus EDK2 port evaluation, which would accomplish little more than giving us a quote for the actual porting itself. Quotes, especially for complex projects, cost money. Like, if you want to have a quote for redoing your entire garden, like, that's going to cost you money. It's also going to cost you money if you want to have a Coreboot quote. They issued this quote when they thought we wanted 2 laptops ported. After we told them it was only 1 laptop, they resent the quote, and the pricing was exactly the same for 1 as for 2 laptops, which kind of leads you to believe there is no evaluation, otherwise 2 laptops would cost twice as much as 1 laptop. I have a feeling that the price they provided you was for 1 laptop, and it was being priced individually. Now, the quote is around 10% of the cost of the full porting, so $33,000 for the Desharo branded Coreboot or $66,000 for the unbranded Coreboot, which, again, they think is an outrageous price because they think 80% of the job is already complete. So either there is some conspiracy amongst all of the Coreboot developers who just want to take all of your money, or maybe your tree that you cloned from System 76 and made minor modifications to isn't actually as complete as you seem to think it is. But oh, it keeps getting better. This pricing strategy raises several ethical concerns. Oh, does it now? Artificial barriers. By making unbranded Coreboot significantly more expensive, 3M Deb is creating artificial barriers to its adoption, potentially limiting innovation and collaboration within the wider Coreboot community. Do you know why the branded one is cheaper? I'm going to let you in on a little secret, okay? Okay? By selling the branded one, it acts as an ad. Okay, so people using a Desharo Coreboot laptop know it's from Desharo and might go with Desharo if they want to Coreboot something.
Misalignment with open source principles. This approach seems to contradict the core values of open source, which emphasize accessibility, collaboration, and community-driven development. You're going to a consulting firm, asking them to port something. You're not doing like some just open source project or whatever. Like, you're going and paying a company to do something. Profit over progress. It suggests that 3M Dev is more interested in monetizing and controlling the use of open source software than in fostering its growth and widespread adoption. But what about the people over at 9 Elements who quoted you $50,000 to $100,000? Are they not also focusing on profit over progress? And what about you? You're selling laptops. So aren't you focusing on profit over progress? Why aren't you selling them cheaper and making it easier for people to buy them, even though you might take a loss? It's because you're operating a business and you don't have employees, but they have employees. Lack of transparency. Customers may not be fully aware that they're paying a premium solely for the absence of Desharo branding, despite receiving functionally identical software. They told you. They told you what you were purchasing. Also, the internet exists and you can look up the things that you're buying. If you're spending $33,000 or $66,000, I really hope you research what you're spending money on. Potential conflict of interest. As contributors to the Coreboot project, 3M Dev's practices could be seen as exploiting their position within the open source community for financial gain. This can also be said about literally every other company that contributes to open source. So what about Red Hat contributing to the kernel, or Amazon, or Nvidia, or AMD, or Google, or Meta, or anybody else? I'm going to let you in on another secret.
The reason that companies contribute to the Linux kernel is because it's good for their profit margins. It's for financial gain. That's the only reason.
Discouraging customization. This pricing model may discourage companies from developing their own branded firmware solutions, potentially stifling innovation in the field. Well, if they develop their own branded firmware solutions, they wouldn't be paying the money to have another company port the firmware. Now, MALIBAL's response was to undercut the price provided. We will pay $150 an hour for this service until the project is complete. I would have direct access to the developer via Slack or a similar messaging platform so I can assist them and do daily reviews of their work. This means no evaluation stage, we just start working, and if you determine you cannot complete the project at any time, then you still get paid for whatever work you performed, and we'll prepay in $1,500 increments, so it's like buying one of these 10-hour blocks of the service you provide at the link above.
The support packages offered in our online shop are for Zaharos system and Desharo firmware ecosystem support.
We provide custom support based on custom mutual agreements with our clients, not on an hourly basis for complex firmware development projects. Custom firmware development and body leasing means higher rates as outlined in our offer. What they were trying to pay for here is a system that has already been ported and then paying for the support package of that. Now, supporting an already ported system is a lot cheaper than porting the system. And just to put all of this into perspective, the average hourly wage of a firmware developer in the US is $75, and in Poland, where 3M Dev is located, it's $25. When adjusted for the cost of living, $150 an hour in Poland is equivalent to making $300 to $375 an hour in the US. But apparently, this wasn't enough for them to debug open source code for one of the main projects they are contributors to. Does that seem real to you? Because I'm still wondering if I dreamed all of this. Now, here's the thing about existing in a global economy. You're not paying for a local Polish employee. You're paying for a firmware developer that works on Coreboot in a global market. Why would somebody charge Polish rates when they don't have to charge Polish rates? Like, imagine there is a Coreboot firm in Venezuela. Should you be paying the developer rate in Venezuela? No. No, that's not how this works. And due to this experience with 3M Deb, we banned the entire country of Poland for life. But also, MALIBAL went and filed a complaint with the Coreboot leadership, to which they said, we cannot dictate terms to consultants, other than they must actually be able to support Coreboot and use the code and trademarks appropriately. Great to know, Dave. I assume Coreboot could stop endorsing a company or recommending them on their site if they treat companies looking to port their hardware to Coreboot like trash or engage in unethical business practices, but apparently not. And then for whatever reason, I don't know why, Matt DeVillier came in and said, you know what? Let's come to an agreement. I can help you out with the porting and we can check this out and see what happens. Now, you may know Matt DeVillier online as MrChromebox, and if you're in the Chromebook hacking space, yes, the same MrChromebox who basically is the reason why that project is possible. Matt DeVillier is the type of person who'll suck your will to live out of you and leave you for dead. Nice guy. He embodies every trait you would never want in someone you hire for a job. He's unprofessional, unreliable, untrustworthy, irresponsible, and incompetent. Now, what I've heard from, developers in the space is he's actually a saint. Like, he's really nice, he's an incredible person to work with, and is just all around a good guy. And of course, he's one of these types who'll bludgeon you with these virtuous qualities, and if at any point you dare say a word in protest, he'll try to turn things around and act like you did something wrong by calling you toxic. No, we're not toxic, Matt. You just really, honestly, truly suck. If everyone in the world was like Matt DeVillier, I'm not even sure how it would continue to function. Who in their right mind would ever employ such a person? Well, apparently, AMD. And that's why we banned all of their products for life. Yes, he is the reason why AMD is also banned. And we had plans to offer an AMD-based version of a next-generation Aeon laptops. Good for you, I guess. Well, now you can't sell them because one bad interaction is a reason to ban not only entire countries, but also entire companies when you don't really have many to ban when it comes to CPUs. The day he received the laptop we sent him, he said, yes, arrived late this afternoon, hope to have some time to check it out tonight. One day later, up until which he maintained, right now I'd only be able to put in 10 hours per week on average, he said, so unfortunately, I just got out of a meeting where I've been assigned to a very high priority project for the next 2 months, and I'm going to have zero time to work on any side projects like this until mid/late August at the earliest. Is Matt a firmware developer or an ER surgeon? Because I had no idea the life of a firmware developer was so exciting and unpredictable that you don't know what your schedule will be literally from one day to the next. Is this standard operating procedure at AMD? They have emergency firmware projects where their employees have to work overtime for a couple of months? Because you would assume this high priority project must mean he's working extra hours. Otherwise, why would it prohibit him from working on our project when he already said he could dedicate an average of 10 hours a week to it? Now, keep in mind, he had not actually signed a contract saying he would work 10 hours a week on the project. He was in a position where he was like, okay, I'll check out the project. No money was exchanged. Literally no money was exchanged. He was just saying, okay, I'll take a look at it. And yes, even if money was going to be exchanged, he works at AMD. You are some random contractor from some laptop company nobody's heard of. AMD takes priority. And here is a quote from MrChromebox. For what it's worth, none of the entities listed were charged or were paid by MALIBAL for any work done. So that includes 9 Elements, 3M Deb, and also MrChromebox. Evaluation of the state of their existing work and what they wanted done was done as a courtesy, and any further work was declined by the consultants. No contracts were ever signed, no statements of work produced. And strangely enough, his GitHub activity spiked in June and July, the very months he was meant to begin our project, more so than at any point in the previous 6 months. I guess that means he wasn't actually busy. Now, if you look at what was actually being done then, a lot of it was very lightweight changes. It was changes to some bash scripts. It was changes to some websites. It was some documentation stuff. No really heavy lifting firmware work, just some basic little things that maybe would have taken like 10, 15 minutes each day. So while we were waiting for him to start, it came to light that he didn't even have the tools needed for the job, even though we discussed this in detail before he received the laptop, and he clearly said he had everything we told him he needed.
Could it be that you forgot to mention something, or maybe he thought he had something but he lost it? Also, no contracts were signed.
He sourced one of the tools directly from China because apparently Matt can't do anything right, and it got stuck in customs for a month, at which point he decided to source another one from the US because, as it turns out, we have basic firmware tools available here. Again, no contracts were ever signed for like when this project needed to be done. No money was ever exchanged here. He bought it from China, likely because it was cheaper. And it didn't really matter because it didn't really matter when he started the project. After he started work on the laptop, he said a cable ripped while removing the motherboard. It looked like this, which is a pretty bad tear if you ask me. Did he apologize? No. Did he offer to pay to fix it? No. Like a true leader, he immediately tried to place blame on someone else by saying whoever had the laptop before him manhandled it. Could it be that he didn't actually break it? This is an insanely bad breakage. You have to, like, try to break it like that. That looks more like a cut to me. I want to know what state it was in when he actually got it. And here is a direct quote from Matt. Though someone that had this laptop before me made an effing mess of the UART connector, I'm not sure I can clean it up and make it usable. It looked like this. Now remember, there was an earlier person who said they didn't even notice there was a UART connector on it. I wonder if it showed up to them like this. As the process dragged on with Matt giving us sporadic updates, he said he was having trouble reading and writing to the chip. Remember, an earlier person said the exact same thing, and it was because he didn't have a sufficient power supply, which we also discussed before the laptop arrived, and he said wouldn't be a problem. Do you notice a pattern? Yes, I do notice a pattern. Two different consultants had the exact same problem. So after almost 10 weeks of accomplishing literally nothing other than damaging our laptop, we asked for an ETA on when he might officially begin and finish the project, since we had only been tinkering up until that point. He asked us for our code, which we had already sent to him the day we first contacted him, in response to him saying he wanted to evaluate our code before committing to the project, so we resent it and followed up again on the status, but we still didn't get a reply. It's pretty normal to lose a link and just want another copy of it, so that's totally fair. After waiting several more days, we wrote this one-line email. What's going on over there? You've left us high and dry, and we have no idea what to even tell our customers at this point. This is such a snarky way to respond. Matt replied, you'd be better off finding someone else at this point. Essentially, he was telling us he wanted to quit the project. He actually never started the project. There was never a contract signed. There was never money exchanged. He had a look at the code, and I think he took a proper look at it and was like, oh, I know exactly what this is. That's when he realized this was the System 76 tree with very minor changes to it, and this was not a small project. And just to emphasize how little character Matt has, at the end, after it was determined he wouldn't be helping us to port our laptop, he actually said he never even agreed to help us. Here are his exact words. I never committed to either starting or completing this project contractually, orally, nor in writing. But yet, when we first contacted him about this project, he asked us many detailed questions about the scope, and then in response to our answers said, right now, I'd only be able to put in 10 hours a week on average, and then I'm pretty sure I can commit to at least getting Coreboot working, but let me evaluate your current codebase and boot log before committing. You literally post the quote and you don't read what you... You don't read what you post. Let me evaluate your current codebase before committing. He never said he was committing to do it.
You just assumed he did. Again, no contracts was signed for work here.
After he quit, we asked Matt to pay for the cable he destroyed and he refused, saying he didn't rip it in half. His exact words were, "Any hardware damage was present on the board when I received it, which I communicated to MALIBAL at the time." To assert that any damage was caused by me when MALIBAL has not even yet received back the laptop demonstrates this communication, the veracity of my statement, and the ridiculousness of your assertion.
He told them it was damaged. Like, how do you include these quotes and think that it makes the person you're talking to look bad? Like, he told you he got it and there was hardware damage.
In reality, this is what he actually communicated to us when he informed us about the ripped cable. Also, one of the ripping cables on the main board ripped when removing the main board to solder the wires to the debug port. I suspect, given the condition of the device, it was previously manhandled and already on the cusp of tearing. Is this supposed to make him seem wrong? Moving on. This is the type of gaslighting you would only expect from a sociopath. Contrary to him saying it was ridiculous to claim he caused any damage to our laptop, you can clearly see he admitted to damaging the cable when removing our laptop's motherboard. No, he admitted to it already being damaged, and he may have damaged it slightly further, but it was already broken. And when you really think about it, could a literal monkey have damaged the cable any worse when removing the motherboard than completely ripping it in half? I really want to know how that cable actually came to the original person, because that is not normal damage from removing a motherboard, from messing around with those cables. That is a very, very clean tear. This is what you might call being maximally bad. That's where you do such a horrible job that it's impossible to have done any worse. Not impossible for a person to have done worse, impossible for anyone or anything to have done worse. A person, a monkey, a rock, etc. The cherry on top of all of this is that, unlike with the Coreboot consultants, we told Matt that this was our last attempt to port our laptop, and that if he didn't help us, we would never offer Coreboot on our laptops, and he decided to quit anyway, knowing it would also mean we lost all of our work we put in over the span of 15 months. You didn't pay anyone for the work over 15 months, you were just talking to consultants. Also, don't give someone an ultimatum. Oh, if you don't help us, well, you're going to make us throw away our work. Good for you, I guess. Due to this experience with Matt DeVillier, we banned the entire state of Texas for life. Now, don't worry. The list of things that MALIBAL doesn't particularly like just gets more and more ridiculous. Let's go to their TOS and scroll down to the bit on, firstly, at geographical restrictions, where they don't ship to California because of Californian regulations. But also, use of Google products and services. Basically, if you interact with the website, you sign up for an account, you do anything with this website with a Google device that is not de-Googled, ban. Same thing with Apple, ban. Now, there is no checking of this, so if you go to the website with an Android phone on Google Chrome, there's no checking of your user agent header to ban you from the website, so there is no way to know about the TOS before going to the website and violating the TOS. I'm not a lawyer, but I have a feeling that is not an enforceable contract. So after this video goes live, let's see what sort of response it gets from MALIBAL, because I hope this gets an update that says update 3. Brodie Robertson from Australia decided to make a fool of himself and harass us and dox me or something like that. We banned the entire country of Australia. That is my goal. So let's make it let's make it happen, MALIBAL. Please do, because if you don't, I've got a whole nother video that I could certainly make based on some interactions you've had with some YouTube creators. So
Let's see if we need to make that one. Anyway, if you liked the video, this was a long one, so please like the video and leave a comment down below letting me know your thoughts. And if you've had an interaction with MALIBAL, maybe you've tried to buy one of their laptops, maybe you're a Coreboot contributor and would like to add some additional context here. Maybe you are Max. If you're Max, please let me know down below. Not just some generic Max, but like the Max mentioned in this. Anyway, if you liked the video, do all that stuff. And if you really liked the video and you want to become one of these amazing people over here, check out the Patreon, Scribes, Liberapay, linked in the description down below. That's going to be it for me, and I should bring a Coreboot developer on the podcast. Not to talk about this, but just generally talk about Coreboot.